please welcome to the stage my friend Jorge Sanchez.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Something I forgot, sorry. So this is the greatest partnership. And why we call the greatest partnership? Because two great tools that have helped HBO and Time Warner accomplish good things. And if there's a tool that accomplishes good things, why not, right? So just a little bit about myself. My name is Jorge Sanchez. I'm the client technology system engineer for HBO/EAS. And EAS is pretty much the infrastructure. Sorry. Anyone hearing me? Oh, sorry. So I'm part of EAS, is the enterprise infrastructure division of Time Warner. I've been with HBO for almost 8 years. I've been the Mac system administrator for 4 years. I'm in charge of 2 Casper instances, Casper environments. One is HBO, and my second environment is Turner plus Time Warner Corporate, and we manage almost 5,000 plus machines. But next year, hopefully, actually it's on the budget, it will become 1 in 2016 with 8,000 plus machines, and there will be 3 system admins in charge. And we're talking about machines worldwide. We've been using Casper for the last 3 years, and CrashPlan for the last 2 years. So this is what we'll be discussing tonight, and I'm sorry, this morning, because I'm still thinking about it last night. I was practicing the presentation, that's why. Not the bars, though. So this will be so first I want to start with a kind of background. So while I have a Game of Thrones picture out there, I'm a kind of fan of Game of Thrones, and because I work for HBO. And kind of there are things that from the shows that you pick while you're doing your daily work is like, we kind of the watchers there. We kind of have to watch for our infrastructure, for our environment, and our responsibility is to run the show and make sure it runs properly. So how everything started with the help desk calls, and there's some clients that don't follow procedures, and unfortunately that's a given in every single company. Even if the trust is there, you have 1 or 2 people or 3 that they kind of take the easy route, or they want to do the fast way, and unfortunately that's not the approved procedure. So, and that's why we brought a backup system that actually enables us to circumvent that client that is not following procedures. So the help desk starts with one person lost his laptop, got stolen, and calls the help desk and say, hey, where's my data? The help desk person says, you know what? Did you verify if it was saved on your network shared drive? And the client says, no, you're the genius. You should have my data. That's what I'm calling you for. But that's not the case. Unfortunately, the person who lost the laptop, their data was on the desktop. And if we had the laptop or if it was damaged, we'll be able to retrieve the data we had the hard drive. But physically, it wasn't possible for us because the machine was gone. So they come back to us and said, hey, you're the IT dudes, you're the system admins. Why we don't have a solution? Why we expect the client to save the data network drive, you should have something in place. There are things out there. You have the cloud stuff. There's a bunch of companies out there. They advertise this while we don't have that in place. And we said, OK, there's a solution out there. There's this company with a very nice website that apparently has a solution to back up your data for any device, anywhere. It's automatic, silent, self-service, high security. You can recover from anywhere. I said, why not? Why not take advantage of that, and let's do a test. So we set up a dev environment where we tested. And we came across that, oh, it's a great tool. We were able to recover data with no problem. If we lose a laptop, we were able to recover the data when we have the new laptop. And that's kind of our workflow right now. Like, for example, when we have a hardware refresh, the person who is doing the hardware refresh recovers the data because they have CrashPlan on the machine, which is great. And things like that need to be set up, and need to be set up properly. And something that comes up all the time is security. Security, is this secure enough? Is the cloud secure? So two things that we have in practice, and we have at HBO, is that we have a hybrid mode. We have an appliance on-premise, and we have cloud Code42, and the data is back up on both places. But the encryption key lives on our appliance on our premise. So if the data is stolen, they won't be able to open it because it's encrypted. And that's a great thing. I mean, that's a big seller. One thing that we like is the open API. And why? Because we get to explore the extension attributes, which later on I'm going to be showing how we do that in Casper. So we do the setup and deployment. Sometimes we feel our hands like that, okay? That because we don't have the right tools to do our work. But this time, we made the right decision, and we decided, okay, let's use CrashPlan as our main backup system for all our laptops. Right now, we do not have it set up for our desktop, just for our laptops. And the reason is because they're portable and they're pretty much on the road. The desktops, we have it on-premise. Eventually, we'll be moving to all CrashPlan to all our machines. So So there's a great documentation out there, and it's something that I encourage everyone. If you are a Mac sysadmin, there's a great documentation for both systems, CrashPlan and Code42. And there's one great document that put up by Jamf at Jamf Nation that tells you how to set up the installer, which is great. But there are things that come afterwards that we kind of miss doing it and affected our deployment. So everything started with the CrashPlan installer. Make sure you follow the instructions properly. There's a user info shell script that you have to modify it. See, those two things I highlight. If you want your setup or your installation to be seamless, that it won't bother clients, set it to false, because it won't disturb the clients when you push the application. Based on our deployment, based on our infrastructure, we are LDAP integrated, and because of that, we need to have the last signing person who signs into the machine to be able to capture that signing, and that information is taken to a CrashPlan, and we get the account added to CrashPlan, and then we get the system being backed up. And also the other thing is that we get the home folder right away. When you customize your CrashPlan Pro installer, you need to keep in mind that there will be settings that you're going to need. And if you are the sysadmin for CrashPlan, or if you work with that person, you need this information, the ones I'm highlighted. The reason I highlighted red is because they're HBO's information, but that's the information you're going to need to set up your installer. When you set up your installer, you have to run this shell script that's part of the installer, which is also part of the instructions that are on Jamf Nation. Once you set up the when you set up the installer with the information that you got from a CrashPlan, you get this, you run the script, and then you get the installers. You get about 6 different files created, and in my case, I'll be using the DMG and the 64-bit executable file because we run CrashPlan on both our systems, PCs and Macs, laptops only at HBO. So when we create when we have the files created, we're going to use Casper Suite, and we're going to use Composer as part of the Casper Suite. Right now, we're on version 9.6.1. We will be upgrading to 9.8.1 next week. It's scheduled already. Actually, it was scheduled for last week, but we decided to come to the conference first and make sure we gather information, and if there's anything that you guys have gone through by already upgrading to 9.1, if you have bad experiences, even though all the information is at Jamf Nation, we want to hear from you guys if you have anything wrong about it, but apparently not. Good so far. So I think, yes. Actually, this is not wood. Sorry. So we will be upgrading to 9.8.1 next week. So with Composer, you create your preference file, and when you have your file created, your preference file, then you will have your PKG, your application. You throw this in Casper admin, but something that you have to set, and you have to be very careful and make sure you do it, because that's part of your procedure that should be done, is the priority. So the priority, the preference file should go first before the installer. So now we have the package on CrashPlan, on Casper. So now we have to set up the policy. So how we set up the policy, the way I do it, and because it's working for my environment, it might work different for your environment, but you can try. I mean, I will recommend you to do a test first. What do I have on my setup is, because I want to make sure the application gets installed, CrashPlan gets installed on the client's machine, I make sure that either the client logs in, machine checks in, and is an ongoing policy. Some people say, why you have an ongoing policy? It's going to install so many times. But the way I have it is, I have a smart group that will prevent the policy to ongoing until the application is installed, which I'm going to show you later. So you see on the packages part of the policy, I have it to install the preference first, and then the application. And something that I strongly recommend, and do set up to update the policy afterwards, to update the inventory after the policy is set. So now, the scope for my packages, it will be to all the laptops. And my exceptions, and this is something I learned afterwards, after we had a kind of a bumpy road when we had to deploy CrashPlan, make sure it doesn't install when the admin is logged in, because we have a local admin account for tech to troubleshoot. The Adobe install when the machine is imaged. There's this Adobe install user, a temporary account that gets created while there's imaging in the machine. We make sure that's part of the exception list. Even though you can circumvent that by pushing the policy afterwards, which is one of the lessons we learned is when we push the policy, we made it as part of the image, which was wrong because it was giving me the user as the Adobe installer. Last user should ignore the root as the user, even though the initial script says root, but I still just added just in case. And make sure that if the machine has already CrashPlan, do not reinstall it again. And I'll make sure that, and this is one of the, because I have an ongoing policy, the CrashPlan Pro 7 exception, smart group, will stop the policy if the application is already on the machine. I have a second policy, and my second policy goes into self-service, because we love self-service. I mean, my clients love self-service, even though sometimes they call for anything. I don't know what type of clients you have in your companies, the companies you work for, but there's some companies that they like to call the technician, or they like to hold help desk, I want you to install this for me. Or they don't want to do it themselves. So we have a policy set, to have the application set on self-service. It's an ongoing policy. And the way it works is that, because as I said, we have an LDAP integration with Casper. If you're a desktop admin and you log in with your credential, that's another thing. We have Casper's self-service set up for you to log in before you're able to get to anything. That's part of our setup, and it's been working great. There's some people that have the self-service open. In our case, we don't. We want you to sign in. So we want to make sure that whoever's signing in, and we kind of log what you're installing, right? That's part of the login. So, documentation. So you have to give documentation. Whenever you set up something, you have to create your documentation, right? Because there's going to be another person who's going to be working on the day you're off, or when you take a vacation, you want to leave something behind that someone has to read documentation. Your peers, your service desk, your desktop support team, they should be able to follow instructions on how to push the software or how to troubleshoot. So we're the resources, and we're the ones who put documentation together, and you have to do it right. Both systems have plenty of documentation out there on the web. Code42 has a great documentation, and if you do have Code42 set up on your company or institution, I will recommend to take the classes that they offer. I mean, it's great. It's great. The same as Jamf. If you take the course as well, and use Jamf Nation as one of your resources. And so, something that we missed to set up from the beginning, and we kind of realized later, is reporting and reacting to these alerts that you get. So you set up alerts on both systems, and CrashPlan and Casper. So make sure you use the use of smart groups and extension attributes, and kind of automate the process to fix any problem that comes out of those alerts. And if it makes life easier, why you just don't set up the process, right? I mean, automate the process. First, you set up your alerts on CrashPlan. So you set up the recipients of who will be receiving this email as the alerts. And you set up what you need in regards to information, what you need in regards to the alerts, which is showing on, here. And you thresholds that activate those alerts. Keep an eye for those, because we're going to be using those alerts with some extension attributes, which I'll be showing later. So here are my computer smart groups. So I set up some smart groups, so I want to make sure that I get notified, or my partner gets notified, that there's an issue with CrashPlan. And we set up these based on extension attributes, and something that I make, I just want to make sure that I get the notification. So the Casper out of the box has some templates for CrashPlan. If you use them, you might get into problems because they don't display the right information. And something that, is already there. The script is already there. So there must be all the people that have already tried to run the script. So where should I go? So in my case, I'll go to Jamf Nation and double check. I said, I went through the script. There's something wrong with it. And probably someone else went through the same thing and had the same problem. And yes, there were other people that tried it and didn't work. And it's because of where the actual, this part, this part made the big difference. Why? Because the install of CrashPlan, that specific hidden file, it goes sometimes on the actual client's library, not the main library. And that line made a huge difference. And the great thing that, as I said, I pointed out on the bottom, that where I got the information from. So now I have my extension attribute, right? So I have my extension attribute set up, which gives me option to set up my alert and my smart group. So I have my extension attribute set up, my smart group. Now I'm going to set up a fix to automate this process, and which I did. I set up by policy, a CrashPlan policy, fixed the connection, and pretty much I set up to login and recurrent check-in, make sure that I get the fix installed right away, either when the client logs in or when the machine checks in. Then I set up the fix. And the fix pretty much is removing the installer and removing the application. So now machine has no CrashPlan. But because the policy is set to do an inventory afterwards, it will kick in the ongoing policy that I mentioned before. And when that happens, because it's an ongoing policy, it will set up CrashPlan properly. And when you notice here on my alerts went down. And the reason is because the problem got fixed. And it happened automatically. So the setup is the one that takes you time, but once that's done, it's fixed. So originally, we had the problem, we had about 80 machines with a critical connection. I said, okay, what's wrong with this? And then I started fixing manually. I said, okay, this doesn't make sense. We're sysadmins. We have a great tool. Take advantage of that, right? And that's what we did. So now it's automated. If it falls into the critical connection problem, the critical connection alert, it will fix itself.
Clarify how you're fixing it. Are you just reinstalling?
So reinstalling the application is reinstalling the application. There are two fixes for that. Depends on how the alert is. One is to stopping the process and restarting the process, but that doesn't seem to fix the problem. And the reason we had the problem is because when we initially deployed, my desktop support team, when they deployed the machine, they were installing CrashPlan under the admin without having the client to sign in. So this is what we accomplish. So we accomplish not reporting since that day because it had a critical condition, and because of the fix, now the machine is reporting back with no problem. And it's something that should be part of your documentation for your desktop support team. Hey, if you client calls and say, hey, where's my data? First thing you should do is check this. If it's 100%, it's up to date, you can recover the data yourself, or I can walk you through the recovery process via CrashPlan on the desktop. On the machine. So the problems that we encounter are a result of the setup. Because we didn't set up properly, we got this. No alerts. And you don't assume because you don't get alerts that everything is working fine. But since we enable all the alerts, we use the extension attributes, we explored the API of CrashPlan, and we were able to get the information we needed, and we were able to act properly. See, one of the problems that we had is when we made the CrashPlan part of the image process, Adobe install was the user, and that was set up as the CrashPlan, and that was wrong. See, something that you have to keep an eye for, the ongoing policies, make sure that they stop, but they have exceptions. Yeah, and set up your smart groups as soon as possible. And inform the help desk and service desk to capture errors from the Casper console. So lessons learned. So this great partnership, these two tools. Instead of going to one tool and the other and check if there's any problem, any alerts, you can kind of combine that and have just one email from one system and tells you this is wrong. And kind of self-fix, automate that fix. And that's your job. And that's our job, my job. So automate the process. If you encounter the problem now, someone might probably have dealt with the problem before you at some point. And that's why Jamf Nation is a great resource. Setting up alerts on both systems is being proactive, act right away. If you could automate the process, do so. And you're not alone. You have Code42. They have a great tech support team. They can assist you anytime. They do respond to your emails. And if there's a major problem, they do respond right away. And the same as Jamf. I mean, I had a problem the other day with my distribution points, and I was able to get help from them, which is great. So great support teams. They're there for you. I mean, not just because you pay them, but the support team is great. And please, something that I would recommend and encourage everyone. I mean, that should be part of your workflow. Test before your deployment. Oh, hopefully I wasn't too quick. Sorry. Any questions? And please do not ask me about Game of Thrones Season 6.
Question.
Do you think Tyrion is Jamf and Bronn is Code42?
The question for those at home following along is sort of silly, but what was that?
Your mic on?
Is my mic? Can you
No,
guys hear me? I know you guys hear me.
no.
Just for the recording, thank you. Question again, Ben?
The question is, does Tyrion represent Jamf or Code42?
Does Tyrion represent Jamf or Code42, Jorge? Tough questions from just a hardcore audience. And we're going to get another gem after this.
Do you back up the entire machine or just the whole?
And the follow-up question is, do you back up the whole machine or
See,
what's your strategy?
thank you for that, because that was one of the lessons learned. And it's based on a true story client who calls the help desk and said, hey, I just had my image re-imaged, and the technician brought it to him, and they gave me a new machine. I said, great, but I'm missing data. Really, you're missing data. They recover all your data. Everything should be on your desktop or your documents folder. Nope. Why not? I left my data on a folder called such and such, and it happens to live on the C root of the hard drive. So some of my laptop users, they're admins on their machines. So this person happened to drop a folder on the C drive, which had almost 20 gigs of data. And apparently this person's been working for the company for 35 years plus. Important data, he had to go back, and guess what? The data is gone. It's gone. I mean, the good thing is that because we had a machine, we still had a machine, and unfortunately, they re-imaged the machine. We were able to send it back and get the data. The lesson learned there is that when we set up our crash plan, we set up to just back up the home folder, both PCs and Macs. Big mistake. Because sometimes that's where you should keep all the data. You should. That's something I said before. You follow procedures, right? You have those that have admin rights. You trust your clients, but there are those who don't follow the procedures. They think it's their personal unit because they have admin rights. And what we did is we went back and make sure that we set up, instead of the home folder, the whole drive, the main folder, on both PCs and Macs. And also we went back to CrashPlan and said, we've been charged per seat, right? But we have unlimited data backup. Oh, why not make use of that, right? We don't have a limit on the space to back up the data. So right now, yes, it's been backed on both systems, the entire hard drive. Except we have exceptions, of course. We don't back up applications because we redeploy those. There are system files that you don't need. On the PC side, we use one folder for deployment to scripts. Ignore that. So stuff that you have control over, set it to ignore. The stuff you have no control, set it to backup.
Other questions? Yes, up top.
What happens if a computer is not backing up, so it falls into the smart group? So now CrashPlan gets uninstalled, and now it falls into the group to install. So it installs it. So how does that computer now adopt its full backup?
Okay. Because if it's the same user, it will back up as a new machine. It won't adopt it until I manually adopt the machine. But the machine is backed up. It doesn't lose the backup. It is continually backing up. So it's just another backup, that's all. And then later on, it's something that actually I'm going back and make sure to kind of automate the process and adopting the new backup. But the second machine, the second hard drive, is being backed up. Why? Because it's tied to the user. So the user now has two backups. So what we do is, kind of right now is manually, we go and make sure that we adopt, and it's just one license being used.
Questions? Any more? Way up top, anyone? No one? Oh, yes, one down here.
When you replace a user's computer and they install CrashPlan with the policy, does it automate a recovery from previous backup, or do they have to manually?
They do it manually.
So just a quick question. If
Yeah.
we-
Okay, go ahead.
This
Sorry.
is the automated, what happens when a user switches machines? What's the process for keeping up?
Okay, so because we have the desktop support team to upgrade the machine, and one of the steps on the workflow, on the procedure, is when you recover the data. So they do it two ways, and they have two options. Either copy to the shared drive and then copy back to the new machine, or they have CrashPlan. Once the CrashPlan is set up, just recover. And usually they ask the question to the client, do you really need everything? And sometimes, most of the time, you have clients say, you know what, I just need those two folders. Can you recover that? And that's it. Yeah, because we want to recover everything you have on the old machine, because we have people that save their music, save their pictures, and something that's a policy at HBO is that we do not, we encourage them not to have their work machine as a personal machine and start saving personal music, personal pictures. Because what happens when we do a hard refresh or upgrade, we're not going to transfer that. Unless it's for business purpose. If it's pictures of business purpose or music, yes, we do the transfer.
Yes, down in front.
What are you using on-prem to store the backups?
What are you using on-prem to store the backups?
Okay, so it's a Unix appliance provided by CrashPlan, and that's where we keep our, I think it has, sorry, how many terabytes drives? 20 terabytes drives, yeah. So right now, I think it's at 20%, something like that, yeah. But we also have a secondary backup because we have two data centers, and we have a backup of the backup, and also there's a backup on the cloud. That's the Code42. But our backups are into two data centers, yes.
Way up top.
Quick follow-up question to the reinstall of CrashPlan.
Yep.
Does the user have access to both backups until you get around to manually?
Yep.
Does
Yeah.
the user have access
Yes,
to those?
yes,
backups?
because it's tied to the username. So what happened is when you adopt the computer, which is a manual process, if you adopt, the client won't have access to it. But since it wasn't adopted, the new backup, yes, you have access to the data. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So I guess I thought I heard right that you guys are hybrid, right? So you've got some on-prem backup, you've got cloud,
Yep.
there's cloud backup as well. So like for your policies, like when they are on your campus network, you just back up on-prem, and then when they're off network, like at home, is that when they're backing up to the cloud?
Yep. Yes. That's
Do
that.
you have different policies or destinations based on where you are?
No, the way it's set up is that you're backing up to both
Yes, that's right. Both.
locations simultaneously.
Okay.
And we have CrashPlan set up so that it's available no matter what network you're on. So if you're off-site, we can still get your data, we can still back up to the local storage and to the cloud.
They almost take the mic into the audience, wake you guys up. Bring it back out and doing this. Get out with people, right?
So as a follow-up to that, when you're backing simultaneously to the cloud, how does that affect your WAN bandwidth and things like that? Do you see a spike in WAN because of that?
So this is something great about CrashPlan, and it's something that's part of your setup. So you minimize the backing up process, or is minimized automatically by setting up the kind of sensors. When the process is being used, 100%, if you are typing something, you're creating something, pretty much you're using the machine, the backup process is minimal. It's minimal. So it has, and we kind of notice that you don't even know, because we don't want to make sure we don't interrupt the client, We don't want to, create kind of a, you put this thing and the machine runs very slow. I can't go to the internet or anything like that. We're kind of trying to minimize that impact by leveraging these alerts, or not alerts, by setting the settings that make sure when the machine is being used 100%, if you're backing up the system to the cloud or to the appliance in-house, make sure it's using 10 or 5% of the process. So you set up those not alerts, but the settings that make sure that when you set up your CrashPlan, that's in place. Because you don't want to be backing up your machine and the process is 80% all the time. No, we don't want that. When the machine is in use, I think it's 5%?
Yeah.
5%.
So also, to add on to that, there are network settings in the CrashPlan appliance so that you can tune it so that you're not going to flood your code. So you can set it so that you never achieve
Okay. I was wondering, just based on the initial rollout of CrashPlan to the enterprise, did they see some giant spike?
Nope. Nope. No.
One here in the middle here, Jorge.
Yep.
How long did it take you to implement the system, and the follow-up, I guess, of that would be, was the outline of your timetable accurate, or was there any setbacks?
So it took us about 6 months. But, huh? Yeah. It's about 6 months, I believe. Yes, he's my colleague and my mentor.
It took us 6 months to roll the whole thing out to all our laptops, and it was mostly because of socialization. It wasn't because of the technology.
Yep.
Because the way it came to us from our management was we have to tell everybody this is going to happen. It's going to happen at this time, and that, so they knew exactly what was going on. And we had to do it in small groups so that if there were any problems, our desktop people can handle it rather than if you're sending it to everybody, and then they go crazy. So it literally was the socialization, the people skills that made it take 6 months. We did, the initial rollout was to like 480, and we're on now up to 640.
Yep. But the next step, 5,000. So because of these lessons that we learned through this deployment and experience at HBO, and because our part of EIS, we have 5,000 licenses, and within the next few months, we'll be rolling out for entire Time Warner.
One more here.
Being that you guys are HBO, right?
Sorry.
Being that you guys are HBO, I'm just curious, do you guys back up maybe like Mac Pro video editors, laptops, so there's lots of videos on them that you're editing?
If it's a laptop, it's backed up. Doesn't matter what department you work for, your laptop gets backed up. Local.
So you do like large scratch files and things like that even to
If it's on the machine, it gets backed up. Yep. And we don't do desktops. We only do laptops.
So if it's in TMP or if it's in cache, then we'll exclude that.
Yeah.
Who else? Well, I'll make it you, Bronn.
How do you deal with,
One of my biggest problems with CrashPlan is clients getting deactivated, dealing with running out of licenses, going to cold storage, purging old backups for old users that left the company. How do you guys deal with that? Are you just over-provisioned on licenses like crazy, or when someone leaves the company, how are you going through that process of, do you get the backup out of the CrashPlan cloud, out of the cold storage, and just have it backed up on site only, or?
Yeah, that's more like yeah.
Let me train my whole life for this. Pleasure.
Part of the answer is that we're really lucky at HBO that we don't have a lot of turnover. So we've been able
storage out of the cloud, archives elsewhere, or do you just keep it in cold storage for 6 months and let it?
I just let it age out.
Yep.
I haven't worried about it.
And because of legal purposes, we need to have that data out there for at least 6 months.
Something close. Thank you. Just slide right in.
So, I deal in education, and we have a lot of faculty, especially faculty, some staff, but definitely faculty that will have personal identifiable information on students. And that's something that that's one of the major reasons why we have to go on some type of cloud service backup. Do you completely entrust and rely on the encryption cloud services with the information that does get backed up? And if so, does it include any customer information? I don't know what type of information does get backed up.
So, because we have the keys on our appliance, we know the data is encrypted. So the data on the cloud is encrypted. Can be unlocked because we have the keys on our appliance. So if something happens and gets to access our network, our firewall network, internal network, get to our appliance, get the keys, they already are access to our data. So.
Well, even then, you need to have
Because there's two sets of that. There's the key, there's the main key, there's one key on our appliance, and there's the other key on the cloud. So there's the private and the public.
well, yeah, there's a private and public key, but there's also the AD credentials that are tied into the keys as well. So you can't unlock an encryption key from the
Yep.
user unless you also have their AD credentials.
So something that we set up, for example, because you have the option on CrashPlan to enable a desktop, because we have groups on CrashPlan. The desktop person is able to recover data. We disable that. Why? Because we don't want a desktop technician to recover anyone's data on any machine. No. So what happened is it's set up for the client must be logged into the machine. Client must log in into CrashPlan. Then the technician, these are the folders you want to recover, then you recover. So as you see, the process is that another person with a different login won't be able to retrieve your data. Yeah.
So following up on that, if somebody leaves the company, you need access to your data, what happens? HR needs to approve the, it has to go through a legal process. It's the same as any machine. It doesn't need to have CrashPlan or any other thing. The process is the person leaves, HR has the authorization and the legal okay to say, AIT, we need to recover data. And because we have the data for 6 months, there's some instances, especially our company, a media company, there have been cases like their shows or their producers have data on their machines that they're being sued after 6 months or something like that. So legal department says, hey, didn't we have that laptop for that client? No, we reused it. But guess what? We have the laptop, we have that information on CrashPlan. And something that we heard yesterday from CrashPlan person is that they're expanding this ability, and that the legal department won't depend on the IT department to get the data. They will have their own access to CrashPlan for legal purposes, and they'll be able to retrieve the data. And they don't have to come to you. They don't have to come to us. Oh, that was great news for us yesterday. But that will happen with the new versions of CrashPlan.
Someone up top, if you run out. Yeah, here, aren't you?
So then what's your data retention policy? Is there something in place for that? Is it
6 months.
specific 6 months?
6 months.
That's gone forever.
That's been 6 months, unless because of right now we're in the process of putting all the divisions together under one umbrella, under one IT department. It might change, it might expand, it might extend it, but right now for HBO, it's 6 months, correct? Yeah.
However, if HR comes and says, we hold on machine,
Yeah, that's another one.
that machine, that policy,
Getting back to when the fix comes in and someone re-enrolls and they have the two volumes, do you have anything in place that, you said that finding that as a manual process, do you have anything in place that tells you that that user has two devices or two backups?
So what happened is when the original backups aged out because of my alerts of 15 days, I could see that machine say, oh, not the machine itself, but the alerts from the CrashPlan server itself, this machine has more, we get a list, I think it's weekly, right, of the machine that haven't been backed up in 15 days.
So
And then we go
see
back,
that
yeah.
machine is not being backed
Yes.
up, and then when you investigate that, you can tell that it's been re-enrolled.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So we have the alert setup in place in CrashPlan, which is great because something that you have to keep in mind, set up your alerts before anything. See, right now, next deployment will be 5,000 units, and just want to make sure that we're prepared. So 400, 600 machines, we went kind of bumpy road in the beginning, but now we have 5,000, so I guess the lessons we learned from this deployment, we're going to apply to the next one, which is a big one.
Any other questions up here? We still have time for a couple more. Oh, nice.
I might have missed it, but what do you do for desktops? I know you see only backup laptops. Do you have any kind of backup for desktops or by a special request or anything like that?
We go by special requests for the desktops, and as because it's part of the procedures, we have multiple shared drives, multiple network drives. The employee is supposed to save the data to their hard drive. But eventually, I think with this expansion and how well been doing with the laptops, my guess, I think is my personal opinion, I think we're going to be expanding to the desktops as well.
So then will you phase out the shared drive approach?
I wish, but I don't think it's going to happen because we set up 2 huge data centers for whole Time Warner, and I really doubt that they're going to go away. They might turn that, because one of the works that they're doing in EIS, part of this group, is setting up a private cloud, so we might take advantage of that in the near future, probably.
Quick question, just because other backup software does it differently, I think. The files that are open, like Word files, FileMaker files, and so forth, do you know if it backs them up when they're open, unsaved, etc.? Because lots of people I know like leaving their files open, they won't ever close them unless they shut the computer down.
Everything on the machine is backed up. So at that moment, it kind of takes up, kind of screenshot. For example, the backups is every 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like Word files, right to the user folder temp. And so that's being backed up. So at least we get that much. So if we blow away the document, we can recover where it was at the last time it was open. But it's always a problem. Users can do anything extremely well.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? Raise your hand. Shout at me. Make a joke. All other questions? One more. Someone's dying to ask. Probably back up time. Over there. I see we got Robert and Mike. That's it. Okay, last chance.
Thank you. Thank you.